NQ Tradeometer overbought.
Hey everybody, it's DayTraderRockStar, and this is the high probability watch list.
Rambot 1 minute sell signal.
After Christmas.
NQ
Big shout out to
Tradeometer
everyone out there.
overbought.
Just want to first say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and anything else that you celebrate. May you celebrate it in happiness and health. And I'll probably do another video before the new year. But if I don't, of course, have a very happy new year. Things are going good. Things are going good. It's Friday here, of course, when I normally do the watch list, and it's a Christmas watch list. We didn't have much action this week. The week before Christmas really slowed down in volume, and the ranges are really small. Really today, we've had basically less than a 3-point range. We had a little spike down here, about 11.15, but we came back in, and you can see how 22.58 to 22.55, basically 3-point range the whole day. And yesterday it was the same. So this is nothing really going into this week or this past week. We had a great watch list last week, and I guess the whole theme of this next watch list, because we're coming near the end of the year, and it's so important. I'm so motivated. I'm so excited to share some of this stuff with you. But I think it really comes down to a simple logical view of the markets. Being in the right stocks at the right time. And if that's what we want to do as a trader, make some money in the market, that's what we have to do. Now, we know that next week we have a seasonality bias. It's called the Santa Claus Rally. It happens the first or the last 5 days of the year and the first 2 of the new year. And that's really what they've, our friends Jeff Hirsch and Yale Hirsch, I believe, probably had something to do with that Santa Claus Rally, naming that. But historically, we have a very bullish time frame. Now, we've had a nice run. There's no doubt about it. If we take a look at the chart, we've had a nice post-election run. And when that happens, and we come to an area that everyone's expecting to be very bullish, that could be a almost sell the news type of event. Believe it or not, it's and you can see that the overall markets here have been going sideways a little. And we're still holding off that 20-period moving average. But, since the election, we have been very bullish. And this even consolidation, it looks fine. At this point, and this is part of, the main thing I want to talk about this week. At this point, everyone could come out with a prediction. I heard last night, going into today, that Carl Icahn again said he's expecting a correction. Now, he's said this for the last 2 years. So, and that goes to so many other, people get on TV and they get their word across there and stuff. And it's, you could throw a lot of stuff up against the wall and hope some of it sticks. And his call is probably as good as Joe Below's on, and somewhere else, on another station. We have major, Bill Ackman, great example. Great, everyone who Bill Ackman. But you know what? He's made some awful plays recently. It doesn't mean that if you're on TV or you make a call in the market, you're going to be right. It's just you have to have some experience. You have to be in the right stocks. You have to, you have to be part of what works. And by far, what we do here at Day Trading Radio works. As long as you can wait for it to set up. That's the key. That's the key ingredient right there. Very easy to show you what works. The hard part is the patience to let this come to you. The setups. I mean, we automated everything. I've automated the setups. When we put them in our HPS watch list, they get triggered just before we had a new trigger. AGN hit its target today, and I'll probably review that for you in a second. And there's always so much I want to talk about because, I'm very passionate about it, and you try to get it across. But the best thing is just showing it over and over and over again. What we look for, the setups, the HPS setups. I call them the HPS setups, high probability setups, because right now I'm able to take those, those real tight in the box kind of come, exactly how it's supposed to set up, explain how that setup works, show you how it sets up, and then alert you to when that is setting up in those stocks. And then the easiest part is, taking that trade right there. The hardest part is waiting for that to happen. So the HPS watch list, again, has to just come with those stocks that are hitting those criteria. The criteria are being met. They get listed onto the thing, and then from that point on, everything takes over by themselves. The time between these things setting up, well, that's kind of a no man's land. You can make money on shorter time frames and stuff, but what we do, what we know, what the best is, doesn't come every day, but it does come a lot. Now, we watch so many different stocks. Just to give an example, we covered the S&P 500, which is 500 stocks right there. So out of those 500 stocks, there's usually a sector or subsector or stocks that are maybe setting up while other stocks are not setting up. So we always have stocks rotating. So we always have these setups coming towards us. We just have to find them. And just to get back to the point about the intraday trades, we have the tradeometer here at Day Trading Radio and how well that works. And just today, Friday, I just want to show you, even in this range, when we look back at the range of the day here, here's 9:30. This is 9:30 at the open right here. Look at this. It has nothing. It's basically sideways. We're right at where we were at the, and this is typical of what happens the day before, a holiday. We haven't broken out. And again, I'm kind of bullish early next week for a couple of days, but then after that, we're going to take things one day at a time, because the length of this rally already could be setting up for a disappointment on the so-called Santa Claus rally. But I do think we probably get a nice reaction on Tuesday when the market opens back up, as long as, and I hate to say this, we don't have any international events or anything. It is a holiday, and there's been a lot of terror attacks around the world, so you always keep that in the back of your mind, that you hope everything turns out good, and especially at this time of year, it could something could overturn the apple cart. But we don't count on that. We don't think about it too often. But if everything goes smoothly, I think we get a little gap up on Tuesday. And Monday we have the market going to be closed. But even in this little range, in this small range bound, you can see there's some really good pivot areas. One at like 10 o'clock, one at 11:15, but can you make money off of that if there's just a 3-point range? Probably not. But take a look at the tradeometer. Now this is the ES I'm going to show you. Look at this. From 9:30, the buy signal, the sell signal. Then we had a little buy signal here, which had a nice bounce, and then it came down. This is where we had that little flush from 255 to 254. It was only about a half a point flush, but it really did nail that. And we, from that point, went all the way back up here. We got a sell signal, it chopped around and then dropped. We got a buy signal, moved back up, and we just got a sell signal. Not a lot going on today, but if you would look at that chart and you say, well, if you were going to take a trade, where would you want to take it? Well, I want to be short here. Probably want to be long here. I don't know if I'm going to mess with this. I probably definitely want to be long here. That's having that, this tool is invaluable for you short-term traders, Your short-term traders, this tool is just invaluable on days like this, especially. Even though you're not getting a big range, it's still, and this works just as good as, a more volatile day. You get bigger ranges, but just to even see a 3-point range most of the day, and you still nail in the tops and the bottoms of that 3-point range, that's great. So, that's all covered and stuff. But you're here to look at some stocks in the high probability watch list. Now, like I said earlier today, we had a great watch list last week, and I'm going to go through those. And we're going to go through all of them, kind of because it's kind of a Christmas little gift. I want to put this out.
Tradeometer overbought.
And you heard it right there, live. Tradeometer going off live. But, I want to share this with everyone as a Christmas gift. Considering next week is going to be a slightly different type of environment, the Santa Claus rally and stuff. We're going to be focused on a lot of things that we've been focused on. And I want to show you the HPS watch list right now. Now, this goes out to members of Day Trading Radio. So as a member, you're getting this, but if you're not a member, you're probably getting this too, because like I said, I'm just sharing it with everyone for the holidays. This is our last week's watch list. Now, the HPS watch list is on top of your dashboard, and you just click on the HPS watch, and the dashboard is actually, let me see if I can bring up the dashboard fast. So let's log in here. So that's what the dashboard kind of looks like right here. And I've shown this so many times. I don't even have it opened up all the way. But You have your trade alerts, your boxes and stuff. But up here, the HPS list, you just click on that, and boom, the HPS watch list comes up. And this watch list really is all the stocks that fit our criteria for an HPS setup. Now, there's only a few, and I call them, they're called the playbook plays, and they could be also found on the dashboard. Up on the top, you'll go to the HPS playbook plays. That's where we kind of right up here, each of those setups that we like to trade are defined here, and there's a video out there on each one of those and explain how the trade is set up and stuff. But overall, in the video, I go over it as you will see today, the setups. So you don't have to even worry about that. But this was last week's watch list. I think we want to start out with JBHT, AbbVie, AGN, Pfizer, Nielsen, Duke is still watching, and basically these are automatically these are put into the system, and this is a real time monitoring of these symbols and stocks and anything we're in, and when the entry price is hit, and you'll see I'll give an example for that first one, ABBV. That was one of the first ones. Take a look at this. So you'll see this. We'll have our setup. This was a downward channel breakout and a retracement back here. This was a buy trigger with a 61.85 to 62 trigger. So it was a very, we wanted to see strength. Normally it's a buy zone where we pull back into an area, or a short zone, depending if we're short or long. But this was something we really liked here. So this is, you got alerted to it, and you also got alerted. It popped up that one day, hit this thing. It tagged our profit zone. From that point, it actually pulled back. It's actually heading back up, and we're actually quite bullish on some of these drug stocks going into next week. But that's how it works. Everything's defined. You have your buy trigger, you have your profit zone, and you have your stop. And when those levels are hit, you get an instantaneous email, and when anything else gets hit afterwards, it also updates you. You also get that as a text too, if you have signed up for that. So let's just go to the next one, the AGN. Now, again, just remember, the reason I'm just showing these today is most of them have played out, but they all fall into what's the most important rule here at Day Trading Radio, is to wait for the setup, or only add these setups to the HPS setup if they fall into this criteria. And one of the best criteria I like is the lane divergence. The lane divergence here is the that divergence between price and stochastics, and it is unstoppable. And I love it. And when we point it out to you, that's the only thing I bring to you. You got to feel pretty good about that, and you also got to feel good about the results from that. Now, this was a allergen, and it's actually let me see. Let's click on this. I'll show you where that is right now. We just hit the target today. Look at that. Look at that. Wow. Beautiful. And again, this is typical of a divergence. The divergence, again, there's a lot of information. I'm not going to go into a detailed course on divergences right now, but you have all that also on the site. Pfizer, same thing. One thing that all these had in common were the divergence setup that was playing out. And again, let's click on this right here, and you can see this just took off. This is one of our first trades of the week, I think, or that was last week, and you can see how fast it moved up to our target, though. But that divergence was just perfect divergence there, and that's what we love. We love that setup, and this still looks pretty good. I actually like this going into next week, but we'll talk more about that in a second. All right, and then Nielsen, like the Nielsen down here. It has, and when you look at the setup, and it doesn't have, we go back here, if it's just green, that means it's triggered. If there's nothing else on that circle, it'll tell you when the price was, when the trigger has been hit. If you get a gold, that means your target's been hit. And if you get a red, that means the stop has been hit first for the target. Again, another criteria, the divergence here. Now this has been going sideways here, and we've slowly been moving up towards towards our target. We almost got there, slow pull back. Not a lot going on here, really, but But I wanted to put this on for the divergence. You might have a different target on it. You know, if you're able to get in it to 42 and change, and you get out of 43 and change, you know, I'm not saying you're going to get 44 all the time. We got close to it. But I definitely want to make sure you know when those HPS setups are set up and you're going to look for a move. Nielsen Duke. Now, the interesting thing about the these are still watching, and I'm going to show you this on this other chart here. These are really nice. Actually, let me show you on this other chart first. I bring this down to, because again, this was another situation where, you know, I did so many scans last week, and you know, just digging deep until finally you find something. And what I did notice here, and let me show you here. Here you have that divergence right here. Now, if you don't see the divergence, you look back at it later, you know, you see it, and say you know, we noticed the divergence, but it's already moved up off of that. It's important to understand that, say, some of these will eventually sneak by, and if they do, you have to have the discipline to understand not to chase something like this, because our divergence setups are usually good until we get that overbought level, and then we look for a little pullback, in which we did. A small, but this was very bullish in its own right too, because you had that divergence and you have this bigger channel underneath. And as we were doing this research, you know, on these, we also found out that the other utility stocks have also set up very similar to this. So when you have the underlying stocks like that all line up, AEP is another one. You know, this was a real nice clean divergence here. Very easy one to read. Same move, breakout, looks great, you know. And that's it, you know, simple as that. So we had those on the watch list. And if you click on those, you're going to see what I did here, because I found those divergences a little bit later. I said, you've got to be careful. Do not chase it. Let's see if we get a pullback first. And in this case, we didn't get a pullback. We just continue to run up. So this was never really targeted, you know, never really did the buy zone was never really hit, so it hasn't been activated yet, and that's how that runs. And that probably happened on the other two also, as you could see. Because of both of those were similar setups, the AEP is also watching too. Colgate-Palmolive and some of the other consumer staple stocks are all setting up really nice now. They also had divergences, and as you can see, we actually tagged our highs, but it happened so fast. This actually did tag the highs here, because of the cron job, and when we checked the price versus the target, probably didn't move so fast into it, moved so fast out. It pulled back quickly from that, so it's still active. It's still active, but it hasn't registered as a profit zone yet. So it is active, and again, let me bring this down over here. Because again, these are actually great stocks to be following, and especially when they do give you those great setups. Now, this was a lower trend line divergence. You can actually see it here up in the 9.3 better. It's been chopping around. I do expect it to make its way up into the top of that channel line. Now, there's other ones like the Clorox CLX. I mean, same thing. You know, a nice move up. This one's already broken out, but these nice downward channel lines. All right, so you get what I'm saying here. The setups are there; they're very easy to identify. You just have to wait for them, and you don't have to wait for them. That's what I'm here for. You know, I'm going to deliver them to you. That's my job. To deliver them, trade them with you, just make some money. So, you know, I've been doing the scans today. Not a great week for new setups because the market's been so flat. A lot of things, and the market's been kind of extended here. But there is still some setups on the HPS watch list that have not. Again, finished their rotation or hit their targets yet. I love this one coming up here, the XPE. This is an HPS type of setup. It's called a playbook play. It's called, and again, I talk about this with the members, and I'm very excited about this. So this will probably be the best bet once it hits its its trigger, and the trigger's underneath it. Now, just looking at a regular chart on this, you'll notice that we just, if actually, let's break it down for you. This will be a little educational segment of the show, and how we identify a 200 EMA channel line bounce, and such a great setup. So you see a stock here that has pulled back, has moved up off the 200 period moving average quite a bit, and has come back and slowly come back through it. Whenever we have a pullback or a rising trend, we have what we call pivot areas on it. Sorry about that interruption. Anyway, I was talking about now identifying the patterns. And when we have a downward move like this, we have a range, and that range could be identified by certain pivot areas. Pivot areas are where short-term trends turn basically. So you have a small upward channel or a small upward trend here moving up, and then we actually have it moving back down. And we have a small downward channel moving up, and then you have it moving or moving down, then you have it moving back up, and so on and so forth. So you start to see when these turns are called pivot areas. And a rule that of the channel is that you have multiple pivots, and if you have 2 points, a pivot is a point basically, and you have 2 points, you could draw a straight line, and that's just math. So once you have once you do have 2 pivot areas there, you just make a parallel line to that line you just made and drop it to the lowest pivot area right here. In this case, this is the one we're looking at right here. Even though this hasn't made a pivot yet, and that's why we're not counting that. This one is a definite pivot area. So you extend this down here, and so now we have a situation where we have a recognizable channel with a 200 period moving average going through it. Now, this is a great setup. What typically happens is we start to hold on to this, but then we break down out of the 200. A lot of people think that's very bearish, but what happens is we'll come down to an underlying 1, 2, 3 channel, which would be right down here. And from that point, we bounce back up, and usually bounce back up to the 200 period moving average. So very easy stock to manage, predict, project, and you just have to wait for it. So that is definitely one on next week's watch list. I already put it on there. This is the chart on this, and this is where we put it in. And as you can see, the buy zone is underneath us, down by this trend line. So nothing's going to happen until we tag that. Now you can see, look at where we're coming down to, though. We're getting closer to it. So next week, hopefully next week, we're going to look at it because we're going to alert it to it. Now, just because we get alerted to it doesn't mean we're going to automatically take it. I gave myself enough room in case it came down fast, or if it takes a little bit longer time. And what happens if it finally tags it down here to 106 instead of 1012? You don't want to be in it at 1012 and see it come down a little bit further. But we want to identify. The best thing to do is to be ready for it off of that trend line, and this is what this alert's going to do. It's going to update you, saying, all right, we're getting close to that trend line, and I'll adjust it if need be. But right now, it's still active, and this will be one of my go-to trades as we get closer to the lower trend line. Excellent setup here. Excellent. All right, so let's get into some of the newer setups, or setups that are not officially on the list, but what I'm looking for next week. And sometimes you'll have some of these stocks that we'll go over that don't officially fit the criteria, but are worth mentioning on the watch list. Now, Joe is something I recently got into, and I got into small right off of this little pullback, and there was no real signal other than this rising trend line. I typically like trading this off of Divergence, but as you see now, we've actually dropped down a little. I'm not too concerned with this because I think it's actually going to set up as a Divergence, which typically we like to trade this. So I think there's a potential huge setup here. The last time we looked at this was back here in March, and it was the lows. And to give you a great example, that was a textbook Divergence right there, and that really marked off the lows. From there, we had a nice bounce, and we pulled back, but we slowly moved up, and we moved all the way up here. So I mean, those Divergences really mark off the lows, mark off the bottoms of these patterns. In this case, we haven't had a Divergence yet, but it sure does look like it's about to set up, especially next week if we actually get this bullish move back up on the price. That'll put us in with a lower low, but a higher low on the stochastic. We start to see that rotation yet. And it has to show us, but I think if it does, then we're in a big position to get an extended move back up. So Joe is It's something I like. I think we just have to wait for that divergence to play itself out, but I think that's a good shot that will happen. The other setups that had some great setups, like the Pfizer and the drugs, still are worth watching because of the divergences. We've made these higher lows, and when you have a higher low, that momentum tends to stay in motion, and we continue to make higher lows. In this case, in Pfizer, we continue to do that. Will we start to turn back up one more time on Pfizer? I still like Pfizer long here, and I like the Amgen here along here a lot too. We had that recent divergence right here, real clean one. Pushed up here and now it's slowly pulled back, holding on to that 20, but it looks like we're going to try to turn back up here on the stochastics and make that rotation. Considering, the effect, the seasonality effect next week, starting on Tuesday, which sector is going to be leading. Is there going to be any news out? But typically this is a good setup. When you have a divergence and you get that first pullback, like we explained in Duke and stuff. Here you had a little divergence here, and you got up there and you pulled back a little, and then it just continued to run up here. We started to make the higher lows being put in here. So Amgen, AMGN, definitely see something positive coming out of this one. It's attacked the gap area here multiple times, got rejected. So 151.41, 151.50 area, key level just to watch. Well, I think we get up there. That's a nice bounce in itself. But I think we go much higher than that. These REITs have not moved like I expected them to. I had some options that expired. This is still set up great, just not moving. The last 6, 7, 10 days here, really going sideways. But as we go sideways, you start to see that the stochastics are pulling back here. So we actually have a trade setup called the stochastic price divergence, where the stochastics pull back, but the price maintains that sideways bias. It doesn't pull back with the stochastics, and that's usually a very bullish signal. In this case, it's a bullish signal. A bearish stochastic setup would be a rise in stochastic and a sideways consolidation. But this is typically gets oversold and pushes out of this as it turns back up. This really breaks out. So that's what we're watching on that. And then there's the other ones, the ETR. I am in some of these. I am in the ETR, the VTR, both of the EXR, excuse me, not ETR, the EXR, and this is very nice. The Avalon Bay, AVB. This one has been a good trade of ours, and that one's already broken out. So I like these REITs. I still continue to like the REITs. I think, actually, we might finally be ready for this.
1 minute sell signal.
Might finally be ready for this. The EXR seems to be a nice consolidation. The same thing here. I like when we start to see the same sectors set up the same way in our playbook. And again, this would be that sideways consolidation, slow rotation on the stochastics. We're going to pop back up, and this is going to break out. So EXR seems to be set up for that also, VTR and the PSA. I definitely like MasterCard here. MasterCard, again, another one of these stocks have been going sideways, and hasn't really benefited from the Trump rally. So you can see this actually moved down a little, moved up, chopped around. So basically not benefited from that as much as a lot of other stocks, but still looking good. Not that far from the highs. And looks like it wants to turn back up and make another run for those highs, which is up around that 110 area, 109 to 110 area. It's 104 now. But I always like this MasterCard. It's just a longer term. We're going to be focused on that more next week on the end of the year watch list going into next year. But, some of these, MasterCard here is still showing good strength. A lot of things here are still showing good strength. None of these are really HPS type of setups, but, surround yourself with positive stuff. At this point, if you're looking for stuff, keep an eye on it. I'm not going to put these on the watch list unless we have, a defined, accurate setup. And it doesn't mean that this can't move, though. So I am liking the MasterCard. Of course, the Visa would be similar, very similar setup. Pretty much your preference on this. CMG is another one here. Now, CMG, I think I have to go out a little bit further on this because it is a... let me bring something up here a second. I have 400 the 400 strike calls on this, expiring next week here, the 30th. I think, it's hard to, get to that 400 level, with the Santa Claus Rally and stuff. We're 10 points away, which is nothing for the stock. The stock has moved 30 points in a shot. It's a good consolidation right now. We're kind of embedded. I like the CMG a lot down here. It's just I don't know how we're going to approach this with the common shares. Also, I think it's probably one of the better ways of doing it because you don't have to deal with that time decay issue. So
NQ Tradeometer overbought.
Another overbought here. So we also picked up 20 shares, and not a lot. Again, at $3.99. It's kind of chopped around. When it gapped down, I actually didn't like this gap down because, this was at this point, then there was a downgrade here that came out, and that was really the go-to trade right now for a move back up here to close that gap. Now we just have to move a little bit higher and get going here. I don't think 420 is out of the range, out of the question again, and again, eventually move a little bit higher. I like the CMG a lot, a lot. It's just that it is a volatile stock. It's prone to news, but I think the worst is in right now, and that's probably a better trade to the upside than to the downside at this point. So I'll have this in focus. I'll probably end up adjusting a position in this one early next week, or at least in the beginning of the new year, just to see how it reacts. And again, I won't put anything on the watch list if it doesn't set up on one of our HPS playbook plays. And I love the divergences. We haven't seen any divergences this week. The market is kind of just a little tired and a little sideways, not much going on. So, it's important just to continue to understand that patience is the best tool right now. The waiting is the killer, But in this holiday session, it's okay to do that, We got a new year coming up. I think also when we get through this holiday, there's a little angst out there in the world of what's going on and terrorism and stuff. I think we get past this little this Christmas holiday, we might feel a little relief rally early next week, starting on Tuesday, Wednesday. But again, we've had this Trump rally that's been, really one of the best rallies post-president election type of thing ever. This has been the best return from a new president so far, and he's not even in office yet. And I want to move. So we're going sideways. Like I said, to start this video off, there's going to be a lot of people predicting what goes on from this point on. I'm not about to do that unless we have a real good setup or something that defines that prediction. But right now, it's nothing. If anything, I think, the setups that we're bringing continue to work. We just have to wait for the next group of those to really line up here. I'm always a big fan of the Googles and the Apple. I have some Apple. I like the CMG. I'll keep you up to date on these. We'll continue to trade those. All right. There's not much else. I don't want to bring you something really special. I love the Expedia EXPE. I think that's really set up nice. The Nielsen here looks good. Again, we have a possible divergence setting up in Joe. The drugs are on my watch list for next week. Even though some of them are not directly on the watch list, we do have this follow through on the divergences. They were divergence setups, so they're in the first, really a slight pullback on that first divergence is usually a buy signal, and that's what we're seeing here. We see that in Amgen and Pfizer, and we'll watch those closer next week also. So I think that's going to be it. Again, I'm not going to bring anything that's not really setting up perfect. Want to end by, again, wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday. Whatever you celebrate, of course. Have a safe and merry holiday. And I'll see you Tuesday. Tuesday we'll be back on the air. Monday we have off. And then we'll finish off the year. All right? So have a great one. I'll talk to everyone Tuesday.